All right, it's 6 o'clock. Should we give it a few minutes for others to join? Is there anyone still in the lobby? Or we can go ahead and get started.
Everyone's been admitted. If you'll notice in the chat, there are some instructions if you'd like to attend the meeting and participate in Spanish. Just wait 1 or 2 more minutes. If you're here for the Military Parkway Corridor study, you're in the right place.
Ujú.
We also have Spanish translation available.
Hola, bienvenidos a la reunión virtual sobre Military Parkway. Para escuchar la presentación en español, puedes clic en el botón de los 3 puntos o donde dice More y seleccione español para entrar al cuarto para escuchar en español. Gracias.
Give everyone a minute if they'd like to do that. And then we'll start with our introductions. We have a few special guests this evening. We'll start with our project team and then give our councilman an opportunity to say hello to you guys as well. I'll start by saying I'm Amanda Popkin. I'll be your host this evening along with Yolanda Alameda and our city staff. Jana, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Jana Wenzel. I'm the Transportation Planning Administrator for the City of Dallas. Thank you for joining.
And Jessica will be kicking things off in a minute. If you want to introduce yourself, Jessica.
Hi, everyone. Jessica Scott with the City of Dallas Department of Transportation and Public Works. I oversee the bicycle and micromobility programs.
And we have our core engineering team here. Meredith Siblak will be giving the presentation. Meredith, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Good evening, Meredith Siblak. I'm with Grisham Smith, and I'm the project manager for this exciting project.
And I know Matthew Choi is also here, who's been integral in putting this project together. Matthew, if you'd introduce yourself as well.
Hi, yeah. Good evening, everyone. My name is Matthew Cho. I'm also with Gresham Smith and the project engineer for this project.
Great. We'll kick things off in just a minute, but I know we have Mayor Pro Tem Jaime Resendez here with us, and he is the representative for Council District 5, as well as Councilmember Adam Bazadua with Council District 7. Mayor Pro Tem, would you like to introduce yourself and say a few words?
Sure. Thank you so much, first of all, for the introduction. And thank you all, everyone that's participating this evening. I'm the council member representing District 5. It's a community that I've grown up in. This is where I live. And so it's exciting to see this type of project, moving forward. Obviously, there's still a lot more work that needs to be done, but I know that there's been a lot of work done up to this point. And so I want to thank you, Amanda. I also want to thank, Gresham Smith, the city's transportation and public works department, everybody that's been involved, and the community members too. This isn't the first meeting we've had. I know other community members have been involved and have given feedback, and so this is a continuation of that. I'm looking forward to seeing the presentation and also hearing any input that the community members may have. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Bazaldua.
Yeah, thank you, Amanda. And I will echo my colleagues' sentiments that I'm very excited for this. I'm really appreciative for all of the parties he mentioned, especially for you all community members who have taken time to be a part of the process and stay engaged. I think that we have really exciting opportunities for the future of the military corridor, and it's one that greatly impacts both District 5 and 7, and will enhance the quality of life and opportunity even for the future for economic growth and of course public safety, all of the above. So this is a really exciting project to see continuing to move forward. It's been years in the works. It will continue to be years in the works ahead till we see true implementation, but we are really excited to be here. Our District 7 office is on to listen and to see what the next steps are. But we are collecting feedback, and if there are any questions that don't get answered tonight, we will take notes and follow up as well. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you both, Mayor Pro Tem Resendez and Councilmember Basildua, for being so active in this entire process, really speaking for your constituents and staying so engaged in this project. I know we've worked a lot with you guys over the last 2 years, and we're excited to see how this project evolves from here as well. We'll start with the agenda, and if Jessica would like to kick off the meeting.
Absolutely. Again, thank you, everyone. Tonight we'll begin with a quick recap of the project, where we've been so far. Next, we'll review the alternative designs and the survey responses that we've received during the last phase of engagement. We took all of those responses and inputs and helped to develop the project phasing that we'll go over in the next step and identify some funding opportunities that we have. Next, we'll look at the next steps, what we can expect to happen with this project, and then we'll open it up for questions. And we'll also share a survey response or a survey option for folks to provide their inputs on this proposal. So with that. So the last time that we presented to the public was April of 2025, where we had a community meeting and we laid out roll plots for the corridor with 2 different alternatives. That was a really fun meeting, a really involved meeting with where a lot of people gave a lot of really good input on the project. And we discussed different design options. With that, tonight we'll detail the proposal that we will be moving forward, both with short-term implementation options and a larger, more long-term improvement options for the future. Also, yeah, go ahead. So this is the corridor, as you all know, if you've been involved in this project, looking for short-term implementation and long-term implementation changes on the entire segment. And so we heard very early on a number of goals for this project, and we really kept those like as our guiding light throughout this process. Whenever we reviewed the previous comments and as we developed this final recommendation and phasing moving forward. So goal number 1 in this project was to slow traffic, especially in business areas. This helps not only improve safety, but can improve the options and opportunity for people to, slow down and actually stop and visit the businesses on the corridor. Goal number 2 is to improve safety for all road users. This is not just the motorists on the corridor, but the pedestrians and the bicyclists that we know are using the corridor today, and will continue to use it in the future. Goal number 3 for this project was to add more trees and more greenery. Again, just making it a more comfortable commercial corridor, really inviting people to be on the corridor more than they are today. And goal number 4 is to provide walking and biking connections to all the destinations, these incredible amenities that we have in this part of the city, including the Trinity Forest Spine Trail, schools, and businesses, as we've mentioned. So with that, I'll turn it over to the project team to talk specifically about the alternatives that we presented previously, and they can talk about the trade-offs and where we landed with the final recommendation. Thank you.
Thanks, Jessica. So as a reminder, in that previous meeting that we had back in 2024 or 25, excuse me, we had 2 different options. We had option A, alternative A, and alternative B. Alternative A is on the screen right now. You can see there's some options that include 2-way frontage roads, some opportunities for a multi-use path, and a lot of the greenery that was just discussed as some of the goals for the project. Looking at option B, a little different look. Now we're looking at using some one-way frontage roads. We still have the bike path, or multi-use path. We have a lot of greenery also throughout the area. So in conducting our both in-person and online survey responses, we asked for the community your responses to which alternative made the most sense. And so looking at the differences here, this is kind of what they are in design. Again, the frontage roads, the two differences between alternative A and B is whether it's mostly a two-way corridor or facility or a one-way facility. Locations in A also had typical four-leg intersections, whereas alternative B had some reductions due to one-way connectivity. We looked at traffic flow and safety between these two to kind of compare them. So there's moderate improvements in alternative A to your intersections, whereas because we're going to the one-way in alternative B, there were significant flow and safety improvements because you don't have those conflicting car interactions. Both alternatives had bike shared paths and bike lanes, but there were some enhancements on the alternative B along the frontage roads for that corridor, for the corridor. Landscaping again for both, but alternative B did have some wider sidewalks and a little bit more increased landscaping, while alternative A had some traffic calming features. What we did hear back on both of those alternatives from the community is just some concerns about speeding and need for additional traffic calming in alternative A. And from alternative B, we heard a lot about how that did support the safety, particularly through the use of those one-way frontage roads. So we had less conflict points between pedestrians and bicyclists and vehicles, just in the nature of the design. The other option we also had presented during that meeting was at Urban Avenue. This intersection, we looked at two different opportunities, whether we put in a traffic circle roundabout, as you're seeing on the screen, or another opportunity of putting in a signalized intersection. Again, we took both of these to the public meeting as well as on the online survey and received some insights on both opportunities. Again, the frontage road, the combination of the two and one-way facilities, looking at how we could reduce conflict points. With respect to traffic flow and safety, the signalized or the roundabout we found, or what we heard was that it improves the traffic flow rather than having a signalized stop controlled location. People are able to easily move through the corridor. Again, there's still bike and peded facilities in both options, so we're not going to compromise our mobility options in the corridor there. And we did receive a lot of divided opinion between the roundabout and the signal. In the long run, that'll factor into some of the decisions we made for the overall corridor. So it was kind of a 50-50 split. Many people enjoyed the roundabout, many people wanted the signal. All right. So some themes and preferences that we saw, that some response themes with respect to the frontage roads was that the preference was between the one-way versus the two-way. The majority of people, 57%, actually responded that they preferred the one-way operation along the frontage road. For shared use path, we heard back from the public a lot of encouraging walking and biking opportunities. However, there was still a need for safety barriers and signage that would be needed for the project. And landscaping, a lot of support for the trees, the native plants, which are going to improve the aesthetics and the shade along the corridor. However, there were some concerns about the maintenance of those facilities, of those trees and native plants. and the desire to reduce the urban heat. Okay. At Urban Avenue intersection, that was again that option between roundabout and signalized intersection. Again, nearly a split on the support. The concerns we did hear from the public were mostly about driver unfamiliarity with roundabouts. So that's where that one landed. Some concerns about speeding and hot rodding on the frontage roads were also heard. So the need for speed bumps and crosswalk enforcement and traffic signals to help slow everybody down was another theme that we heard from the general public responding to the survey. Parking, another big one, particularly in the business area. Mixed views were received, and kind of the theme for on-street versus property parking. And then there were just some questions about business parking accommodation. Improved sidewalks, communication, and enforcement were some comments and themes we had heard. And there was a lot of notes on neighborhood growth and safer and a greener corridor. So taking in all of that information, looking at all of our engineering analysis, we've come to the recommendation of alternative B being the slightly preferred option for the community and for this corridor. Remember, that is the one that has the parallel frontage roads that enhance accessibility by car. And so I think we'll dive into a little bit more about what that looks like in the next sections here. One thing to draw attention to is Urban Avenue at this time. Ultimately, it was a very close and split decision between the signalized intersection and the roundabout. And we're going to keep that open for future discussion. Right now, our option is to move forward with the signalized intersection. But you'll see when we get into the funding component of this project, there's still plenty of time to make a switch to a roundabout that we wouldn't narrow our limit or limit us at this time. So going into the phasing and funding, and again, I will be showing some breakdowns of what this corridor is going to look like in the next couple of slides, what option B is. And if we need to go back to the earlier picture of option B, I can also do that. But we did take a look at the phasing and funding. There is funding for the study from the 2017 bond, and about $3 million was allocated for implementation for improvements. One of the key things about this $3 million is that it can be used for grant funding. When we get more into the funding kind of plan that we have for how we're going to build out this corridor, it'll be really important to note. Okay, so this is your final recommended option B layout. As you can see, we have one-way operations on our frontage roads. We do have multi-use paths and bike lanes still on the facility to provide a lot of mobility options for everyone. There's a number of plants that you're seeing in this graphic as well throughout the corridor to help provide that shade and that destination feel. Okay, so going into funding, we've broken the funding into three different buckets. Some phase one, which are maybe more near term, things we can do fairly quickly on the corridor. Phase two is going to take a little longer, and then phase three is a lot further out. And we'll go through why those situations are as they are as we move through this. So phase one, the game plan will be to do that frontage road reconstruction, converting them from a two-way to a one-way. And that'll be done through signage and striping. So that's something that can be done fairly quickly with minimal resistance or challenges for getting that kind of out for the public. We'll also be doing some enhancements for pedestrian crossings. Again, one of the goals of this project was to have a safe corridor for all users. And we want to make sure that we're really identifying that at the early point of this project. There will be a couple of median closures. that are going to help with the frontage road conversion. And this is just to help with the traffic flow and keep everybody moving appropriately through the corridor. And then we will be doing some select corridor landscaping in this phase. So we're going to start that greenification of the corridor. The part of the corridor that this is going to impact is in this kind of middle section of the corridor from Longview to Cedar Lake Drive. So a good portion of the project would be experiencing these early changes in phase 1. It will impact both the Urban Park School as well as Parkdale Park, and then parts of the more business area of the corridor as well. For phase 2, we're still going to kind of focus in on our outer areas, those frontage roads. And this is where we'll be reconstructing to install the bike and pedestrian facilities, again, from Longview to Urban Avenue. So you can see how those are now being represented in the corridor along this side. Urban Avenue, this is where the signal will come in. And again, because this is phase 2, there is an opportunity to look at the roundabout option, but at least we could do a signal fairly quickly here to help with the traffic flow in the corridor in those places. Additionally, we're going to do some illumination improvements, help the lighting along the corridor to make sure we have a nice feel, everybody's safe, we have good lit areas where pedestrians and bicyclists and vehicles are interacting. And additional landscaping will be done in this phase. So we've had some in the beginning, we're adding some more. In particular, we're doing some more grasslands and some of the trees that'll exist along the corridor to help with that heat, provide shade, and to make it, again, a really welcoming place where the community and the businesses benefit from the greenery. This, again, will happen in between Longview and Cedar Lake Drive. So again, focusing on that kind of middle section of the project to really enhance what's happening in that space. Phase 3 is going to be further out. And this is where we'll put in the remaining bike and pedestrian facilities. We'll improve the bus stops for DART. We'll upgrade the signalized intersection at Forney, and all remaining landscaping will be done. But the majority of why this is so far out into phase 3 is that reconstruction of the main line to give it a very different feel than it does today, to help curb some of the speeding and make it, that final piece of enjoyed facility that will run through the community. And this will take place across the entirety of the corridor. So all parts of the community along Military Parkway, all the businesses will see vast improvements in that final phase. So earlier I talked about that $3 million that we have that can go towards grant. Overall, the estimated cost for the final product that we would have at the end of phase 3 is $47.7 million. Excuse me. And that really breaks down in phase 1 to about $3-ish million to get that first early wins with some greenery, with the striping, with the changes to the one-way direction frontage roads. Phase 2 is looking at about a $14 million cost. But then you can see phase 3, because it is the whole corridor, there's some massive reconstruction of the main line, or where the majority of us drive. That one is going to be a pretty big chunk of money, and we're going to want to make sure we are getting grants and supporting the project in a number of different ways. And so that's the major amount of the project, which is about $35.5 million to do that whole final stretch. So next steps for the project, we're going to work to confirm and advance the phase 1 as we've discussed today. That way we can get some immediate safety and operational benefits. And we establish that early viability of the progress. This isn't a project you have to wait so many years to even see anything happen. These are some things we can do in the nearer term. We're going to redefine and program phase 2 next. So we'll understand the costs, design milestones will be defined better so that we have a really good cost and scope. And then we can get that process moving along in the capital process. Coordination with our local council of governments is really important to ensure that we are aligned with the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. And this is so that we can garner some support for those future federal, state, and local funding options. Again, right now we have $3 million ready for the project, but as you just saw, this is a much bigger project than that. And so we'll need to make sure we're in alignment to get all the federal, state, and local funding options that we can to meet that ultimate fee for the whole project. We'll also be doing some coordination with Dallas District of TxDOT to evaluate HSIP eligibility. That's a funding source that they have, which is based on safety needs and corridor characteristics. We want to make sure, again, we're eligible for the most amount of money along this corridor so that this can get built in a reasonable time frame. Following that effort, we're going to be monitoring the grant cycles, looking to see what's coming up, where does this project align, as far as readiness for activities, if we need to redefine our scope, update cost estimates, have some preliminary engineering, anything we can do to make sure that when grants are coming from the federal government or from the state, we're in a good position to be competitive for those grants. We'll redefine phase 3 scopes and cost estimates, again, as we move through that grant process to evaluate what else we might need to do. There's some discretionary opportunities that we've even identified from the current funding structures that exist for FHWA. So we're just going to keep monitoring what's happening consistently throughout this project to make sure that this project is in a wonderful place to be selected for grant funding. And throughout the process, we're going to continue with stakeholder and community coordination. This will help us to confirm priorities, reduce risks for delivery, build ongoing support, particularly around our school crossings and the transit changes we're anticipating, and then throughout the construction phasing. So that's a quick recap. If we need to go back to any of the slides, I'm happy to do so. But our immediate next steps are really critical, and that's what we're asking from everybody on this call today. Please go. There's a QR code as well as a link on the screen to our project website. And we want to hear from you. Review the vision documentation and the plans. There's much more detail that I could cover in our brief meeting this evening in those documents and in the laid out plans. The same roll plots that we provided in the meeting, we have online, so you can kind of dig in and see a little bit more about certain areas that you may be more concerned about. Additionally, there's a survey where we'd like to collect your thoughts. This survey is going to be open through Sunday, August 16th. So let us know what you think. We're here to listen. And with that, I'll turn it over to questions, and I'm sure we have a few in the chat.
Thank you, Meredith. I wanted to add too, before we get to the questions, that we also included, since some of these implementation phases are so long, there's a placemaking recommendation appendix included in the report. And we really just wanted to try to empower the community and let you guys know that, as always, as this project continues, there doesn't need to be a formalized process necessarily. It could be years before you see some of these changes, but a committee of self-appointed individuals can always continue to follow up on this project, can begin work now on some of the placemaking recommendations, can continue coordinating with council members into the future. So we want to just let you guys know that even though some of these are really big ticket items, some of these first implementation phases could be coming sooner than later, and you've always got the power to start some of those changes now. In addition, there were lots of good questions. I'll start with a few, Meredith. specifically, are bikes allowed on the shared use path? How wide is that shared use path? And how wide are the sidewalks planned to be?
So a shared use path is for both pedestrians and bicyclists to use. And I'm going to turn it over to Matthew for the details on how wide each facility is.
Yes. So the multi-use path or shared use path, they're going to be 12 feet wide. Sidewalks will be 6 feet wide. And yeah, as Meredith mentioned, so the multi-use path does technically allow both cyclists and pedestrians to ride it. But I guess given the pavement width that we had in alternative B, with it being one way, we had some extra space to allow for a dedicated bike lane. Um, I'm sure, I guess I'll give an example. I live by Keys Park. It's like about 12 feet wide shared use path. It is very troublesome to ride your bike if there's a lot of people walking. And so that's why we kind of gave that flexibility to have those two options, whether or not you want to ride with the people walking or have your own dedicated lane. Oh, and bike lanes would be going in each direction.
That's great, Matthew. There's one other related question. I know you guys studied intensely the underground utilities in the area. Will those bike shared use paths conflict with the underground utilities?
No, we looked very hard at a lot of that. But go ahead, Matthew.
Yeah, yeah, just so going through some of our existing conditions, yeah, we did discover I believe it was a 24-inch high pressure gas line on the south median, um, in between the frontage roads and the main lanes. Um, and so that one it's pretty persistent throughout the project limits. And so that's why we essentially avoided doing anything in the that south median because of that high pressure gas line.
One other related question. A lot of those frontage roads don't have curbs right now, and there seems to be somewhat of a problem with people parking on the grass in the medians. Are curbs included in this upgrade? And what phase would that be?
Yes, so that will be in phase two, where we will be installing curb and gutter.
Great. What is the plan for safe passage between Forney and downtown?
That's west of Forney.
Yeah.
I can answer that. As a part of the bike plan, we've identified a trail along Carroll Street and then connecting to a trail that's already funded along Washington Street north of the Fair Park, connecting to Santa Fe Trail into downtown. Just going to go ahead and answer this question I just saw added in the chat. Is this going to connect to the loop? And the answer is yes. The proposed trail would be coming in that area south of from Tennyson Park. And so that will connect at the bridge over the creek. So yes, there will be connection into downtown as well as to the loop. Thanks.
There's another question about sidewalks that were apparently installed about 5 years ago. Will this be changing those sidewalks? Is that something you guys were aware of or looked into?
If it's the one that's on the north side, kind of, I guess close to Calejo Elementary School. So if it's about those, we won't be removing them. We will actually be extending them, widening them to be a shared use path width. But hopefully that's the one that this comment is referring to.
Thanks,
It looks like
Matthew.
it is.
Yeah.
Oh, great. I know we talked a lot about signals for crossings. There's a question about a signal at Wilkes and at Military for school crossings.
Yes, so we did those. There were a couple of locations where we looked at enhanced pedestrian crossings, which does include a pedestrian hybrid beacon. And so Wilkes was one of those locations where a pedestrian hybrid beacon was warranted. And I guess if you guys are unfamiliar with that, that's the one where you can push it and it flashes and it stops traffic at a stop bar unless the pedestrians cross. So we do have that one proposed at Wilkes Avenue and Military, because that's the one that goes directly to the Open Park Elementary School.
Okay, great. I'm getting more details from Robbie on his question, but meanwhile, the way that shared use paths are designed, will there be safety barriers in the middle between the roadway and the sidewalks? I think that's what Daniel's talking about here. Let us know if we didn't get that question right, Daniel.
Okay.
So are we talking about this shared use path that's kind of in this larger median? I'm assuming that's the case. It just might be easier, Matthew, to speak to this.
Mhm. Yeah, so I guess in phase two, so we will have curb and gutter. The show speed on the both sides. Oh, okay, that's something else. So we will have curb and gutter, and I guess that was another also benefit to having a protected bike lane with protected facilities. It's probably a little bit hard to see in this graphic, but there are concrete separators in between them. So not only does that have a separation between the shared use path, at least on the frontage side, but we will also have the green space buffer between it. Now, between the main lanes, it would be a similar situation of where we would have curb and gutter. Um, Unfortunately, that's not until phase three, but there is a sizable grass buffer in between the shared use path.
Okay, great. Let's see. Will the White Rock Creek Bridge be marked for 2 lanes of traffic in each direction with shared use path on the remaining deck? Is that part of the plan linked to the loop crossing? Sounds like a question for Jessica. Should I repeat the question? Will the White Rock Creek Bridge be marked for 2 lanes of traffic in each direction with shared use path on the remaining deck? Is that part of the plan linked to the loop crossing? I don't know, maybe Matthew knows the answer to that one. It seems like it's a question about the bridge design.
Yeah, so I'm not finding it in front of me, and I'll say that this is not detailed design. So, even with the question before, are there concrete barriers between the travel lane and the shared use path? The answer is no, it's not proposed. We are leaning on the kind of horizontal separation that there's a grassed median between the travel lane and the shared use path. So with that, we are more comfortable with not having a pedestrian barrier because there is some physical distance between the travel lane and the shared use path. In addition, we're hoping that the other striping changes that would be implemented on the corridor would help slow traffic. So we're not seeing the high speeds that we're experiencing today. So with the anticipated, slower speeds of the cars, the distance between the path and the road, people would be driving slower and feel more comfortable on that trail. As far as that next question, I would have to take another look at it, or otherwise it will be defined like when this is in final design.
I would want to mention too, if you're looking at the detailed, kind of preliminary designs for that connection between, say, the park and the White Rock Creek area where the loop bike area will be, there is a segment where the private property gets really close to the road, and you'll notice the sidewalk has to be pretty thin, or the shared use path ends up being really thin as you approach the bridge on the north side. So there are some constraints like that we've had to work around. But I mean, those are more difficult things to solve, especially in such a preliminary phase. Let's see. There was also a question. I didn't get any more detail from Robbie, but he did mention that trash pickup is being moved from the alley to the street, and he was wondering if that's something that would impact the design. I'm not sure exactly where that is. It may be on the frontage roads. Are you guys familiar with this issue? I think this is a new evolution in Dallas that we're moving our trash pickup.
I don't think that was accounted for in the preliminary design that we've displayed today, because it is a newer thing. So that's the first time hearing about a circumstance like that. I think just to emphasize, this is preliminary, and as these plans or as this project moves further into design, there will be some items that come up, changes like how trash is getting picked up, that'll have to be really accounted for in the physical design before it goes to construction. So just noting that that's something that has changed is really important for us. Thank you for that comment. And if you have other items like that, make sure to add that to the survey so we can account for that, or at least note those are changes that are coming and would need to be accounted for in the design phase for the project.
And I'll add that survey link back in the chat for you guys. It's just a pretty quick survey. I also wanted to mention, Daniel, I know you're mentioning, there's no way this is going to slow traffic enough. The way we design roads is pretty constrained. We were trying to think outside the box on the frontage roads. I know, especially near people's homes, that's a big concern. And so we managed to put an idea in the placemaking recommendations that would allow the community to experiment with a new type of design called a chicane. We had that in our survey at the last meeting, and it's just such a new urban planning way of doing things. We've seen a lot of these implemented in Austin, where they're a little more progressive and experimenting with different types of road design, but we haven't had any in Dallas. So it's still something that we didn't feel comfortable putting in the official recommendation. But if there were some community members that wanted to experiment with more forward thinking and more intensive traffic slowing ideas, you'll find that in the placemaking appendix. And we tried to include some direction for you guys on how to work with staff and other examples of other communities doing this type of work. So hopefully that's helpful at least. What is a chicane? I think you did spell it right, Kimberly. It puts basically posts or trees or other types of objects within the right of way to have a car navigate back and forth through a larger right of way that might encourage someone to speed. So it basically creates kind of necked down areas, and typically it'll have one on one side of the street and then one on the other. So a car approaching has to slow down to navigate through the chicane. It's typically on lower speed roads where cars are already going, maybe 30 miles an hour, and this slows them down to 25 or 20. So it's really for those lower speed roads to really get cars to drive even slower. But that's not something that can be used on the main lanes of Military Parkway, of course. Any other questions we missed? Oh, what is the timeline for the phasing of the 3 phases we've got laid out?
Ooh, good question. I'll say that generically they're near midterm and long term. I don't think we defined very specifically years for that. And that's intentional because of some factors such as needing to do some design on that. Matthew, do you recall if we had any more specification? I don't recall anything more than just, and grants also, just so everybody's aware, those take a long time to get in the cycle, to be awarded, and then to execute those. So we wanted to make sure we had enough that we were realistic with those longer term projects that need a significant amount of funding, that we had enough time to get in front of those grants and those grant opportunities.
Okay, I think our questions have slowed down. Oh, one last question. Who will maintain these new right-of-ways?
The city of Dallas.
The city of Dallas, there's no right-of-way procurement. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but everything is being done within the existing right-of-way. Not looking to get any other land. So everything that the city owns today, we will be improving upon and then maintaining in the future.
Which is one reason why part of the landscaping includes some decorative, more like rock features that require less maintenance, and also include a lot of native plants that will be able to sustain themselves once they're established. Is there any provision to encourage commuter traffic to use Highway 352, Syene Road, which is much more efficient route minus the on-grade railroad, than Military Parkway? I know this is something that we discussed in previous meetings. I'll just say, unless anyone else wants to address this, this is a hard one because it's a little out of our scope for this project. Um, it seems like the way you push traffic to other roads might be slowing the capacity or the efficiency of this road significantly, therefore driving demand to other roads. And that wasn't really a goal for this project. I think it kind of ends up being like a secondary goal that could be more integrated in future phases when the plans get more detailed, similar to the way the roundabout can be more detailed or can be integrated into the plans as we find funding or as it becomes time to really detail those drawings. So I think there's a lot of comments like that that can continue to be part of this conversation in the future, since this is a more high level visionary report document capturing the sentiment of the community where we are now. It could be 20 years and things will change before you're ready for that phase three. So we want to leave things a little bit open to the future while capturing current trends and desires and growth strategies and things like that. So there's that door hasn't closed, Mark, but it may not be something that we could address in this phase of the project. One more good question. When will phase one start? Meredith, would you like to take that one?
That's more of a city question for how soon we can get started on their work program. But the description and the items that are in phase one are designed specifically so that they could start very soon. I know that's not a very specific date for you, but it is in the more near term. It just has to get slated into the city's program for projects. And Jessica, feel free to add to that as necessary.
Yeah, I think first step is finishing this corridor study, moving it to detailed design to get those striping changes and going from there. So definitely looking forward to getting everyone's comments. Appreciate everyone attending tonight, providing your comments through the survey. I believe it's through the 16th that we have the survey open. So looking forward to wrapping this up and then we can get moving to that next phase. And when things are in design, we will be sharing those timelines, surveys, even in during detailed design when we enter those design phases. So we'll be in touch when we get to those next steps.
A couple more great questions have come in. I'll just answer Krista's question real quick. Where can we put our comments on record? Who can we follow up with? Who will be listening to us? And how will the neighborhood groups be engaged that will be impacted by these changes? So I'll just say you can submit your comments officially on the record through the survey link. It's basically what are your thoughts on this project? That link will also be on the project website, hopefully tomorrow morning. And I think who should you follow up is probably your council person is probably the strongest point guard on this project going forward. They'll be the one to help find more bond money and probably transportation staff might have a better feel for upcoming grant opportunities. You know how they're juggling a lot of projects across the city, though. So your council member is really the one with eyes on your district, lobbying for the projects that are priority projects here. And I'll just repeat, you don't have to wait for a formal task force to be appointed. Self-appointed community members, self-appointed task forces who can keep this project in the back of their minds as other projects come up through the corridor and as the neighborhood evolves, will be the most valuable contributors to the historic knowledge of what's happened, what's planned, and what's going on in the neighborhood. So you guys here at the meeting are key parts of that, question of whose job is it to make sure this goes the way we want it to be, and I think it's all of y'all's. Um, this other question from Matt, I'll just go ahead and read. I'll try to rephrase my earlier question. He says, a large ditch runs along Military on both sides of the road. Placing the shared use path in this area will require underground storm pipes and inlets along that entire frontage. So as we curb and gutter it, what is the cost estimate? Why is the shared use path an element if we have sidewalks and bike lanes on both sides of the road? This seems like a huge unnecessary cost. It took us almost 8 years to get new striping. So, what do you guys? Probably Matthew is the best one to answer that.
Yes. So yeah, I know exactly what you talked about. I think it's mainly the north side, between Longview and Jim Miller. So that will be in part of phase two, and I guess that's why phase two is quite pricey. 14 million. I'm not saying it's all 14 million, but that's part of the reason why it is 10 plus million. And yeah, like you said, it will require underground storm pipes, inlets, just to help it drain and level out the grades for the shared use path. Now, in terms of why it is an element, I guess it's really just to provide connectivity. Through connectivity, I guess we've received some previous feedback of the sidewalks not being enough. And so the shared use path just provides that continuous um, gateway through Longview all the way to the business area by Urban Avenue. Yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Okay, one other question. This plan is shaping up to be one of the most innovative parkways in the city. Thanks, Bart. Is there a similar multi-use corridor elsewhere in the city or nearby suburb that you'll refer to or envision when considering these plans? Gosh, Military Parkway is really unique in my mind, the way it's designed with the primary, I mean, it's just designed like a highway with the frontage roads in front of the houses. Um, it's pretty unique. I know we referenced some other small urban roundabouts to look at urban avenue options. Anything coming to mind, Matthew?
We didn't we didn't look at any in within Dallas per se. Uh, we did had an example in nearby Houston, if you call it nearby. I'm trying to look up the name of that corridor study, but that one was probably somewhat pretty similar to Military Parkway. But then I guess that just kind of speaks to how unique Military Parkway is. Um, but let me do a little bit more digging to find that, and I'll put that in the chat of that example in Houston.
Thanks, Matthew. I think this might be another question for you, but maybe Meredith can answer it. What is the design for the stormwater drain off?
Okay.
Yeah, so there's not been any design yet. Again, this is that really high level what do we want this to look like kind of corridor. It is grounded and based in reality with respect to engineering standards and considerations, but we haven't done any deep dive of design along the corridor. That is all going to be taking places in phases 1, 2, and 3. That's where we're going to get into the real depth and meat of what an engineering design along the corridor needs. But we did try to account for as much engineering that we could understandably limit our options so that we weren't giving you something that was so just pie in the sky and beautiful, but not quite physically possible. So we did have a nice blend of engineers working on this project who do a lot of stormwater drainage designs or do a lot of roadway design, but we also had planners and urban designers who really contributed to help address all of the goals for the project.
I'll go ahead and address iPhone users question. There's been a lot of talk about this project and many holds on the project. The city's studied this roadway for the past 20 years. Amen. These types of big projects are just like behemoths. There's a lot of moving parts. It's a lot of money. It takes a lot of oversight from city staff. And, you know, I used to work in economic development and I saw projects finally come to fruition that we had worked on in 2010, you know, come to fruition 15 years later. It's just the timeline of city projects. And that's one of the reasons we really tried to break this down into, you know, we've got a little bit of money. What can we accomplish that'll really make a big difference and help people feel like there's a change? You know, what can we do to move the needle with what little money we have? And then how can we continue adding to that in the long term to achieve a much bigger goal? So hopefully you guys can see some things happen a little bit more immediately than 20 years. Also, Krista mentioned that Urbandale United is one task force that is congealed for Urbandale. They've been at every meeting. It's a neighborhood nonprofit, and it sounds like it's one organization that you can join forces with to continue tag teaming on this project over time. And
Hey Meredith, this is Bart with District 5. Is my mic active?
yes.
Yes.
Okay. I was just noticing there's a couple questions further back in the chat, and forgive me if you did address them, around the 622 mark from Chrissa and James regarding the one way and how that might impact funeral home processions at the funeral home. And then there was another one at the 631 timeframe about the recently installed sidewalks.
We did do the recently installed sidewalks
Okay.
one. Yes, but thank you for bringing those to our attention. With respect to the traffic flow at the funeral parlor, that would be something that in the next phases would be looked into with more depth to make sure that we're accounting for how that might have to operate, if it has to operate, you know, differently in that little area. But again, we were looking at this broader picture of the overall corridor and the themes, but we'll get that noted. So again, that'll be a recommendation within the responses that we get from the survey that we look deeper into those circumstances for traffic flow.
I think one
Similar
of the suggestions. Oh, go ahead.
Similar to the trash pickup concern.
Right.
It's just something else that has to be looked at very specifically in a very specific area. And we were just trying to focus on the broader space for this project.
Sure. And maybe just to give a little clarity on that, I think one of the suggestions maybe regarding the funeral home is that the location of a break onto the main corridor could be a solution there to get more direct access to the main part of the road, you know?
Okay. And again, that's the kind of stuff that we would want to be looking at as this project is progressing through phase 1, 2, and 3. There will be more time to give feedback and really dive into many of those items to make sure that we are as accommodating as we can be to the overall corridor's aesthetic, feel, and safety.
Great. Just want to make sure we talked about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that, Bart. inserting the project website and the survey links again. And let's see, are there any last questions? Who's in charge and decides what and when? That's a great question. How do these things work? Who's doing what? Jessica, would you want to
I think
try to?
we're all working together. I would say I think it is a piece by piece process. As we said, there was funding in the 2017 bond, which we used some of that money to do this corridor study to get this big picture idea of what changes we want. When we looked at the solutions that are possible, we thought, wow, that's a huge project. So then we thought, well, what can we do now? What can we do on a quicker time frame? And that's kind of where we broke this out. So I think this is a joint decision. This is, as we presented those first options and as we present this phasing, it's a group effort. So we're looking for your feedback on the proposal found in this study, and that will inform the city's attempt to get federal funds. When we build our application for federal dollars, we'll be looking to use local money as a match to those bigger dollars that are available at the federal level. So can't say who because it's a joint effort. City staff working with consultants to develop these plans, getting feedback from the public, very real inputs, like is provided about the funeral home, needing to design around those and make it a project that serves everyone who uses the corridor today and in the future. So hopefully that's an answer that is an answer, not a non-answer, but it's truly my perspective on it.
Thank you all so much for staying engaged for over 2 years of this project. Also for so many great questions. These projects are always better when we have community knowledge of how things work to really integrate into the plan and get those details right. This is the first go, and I hope everyone can continue to stay engaged over the next few years, hopefully not decades, of this project as it matures. And I wanted to let anyone know that if you're not already on our email list or phone list and would like to receive email or text reminders of the survey and when it's about to close, please direct message your email or your phone number in the chat to myself or Yolanda, and we'll include you on that. We'll stay on for an extra few minutes in case there's anyone wanting to join our project email or text list that will be wrapping up on August 16th, Sunday evening. We'll close the survey at midnight, and we really hope you guys have time to put your thoughtful comments in there because we know that will make the project better when it gets time to really detail out those engineering drawings. We've got one more participant that just joined, but thank you all so much for your time. We'll be posting this on the project website so you can watch this video and all the questions that were asked. We'll have the final report and the engineering drawings on the project website here, hopefully tomorrow morning, and the survey link up there as well. And I'll be emailing and sending a text out to everyone on our group list to remind you of that Sunday, August 16th deadline. Thank you so much for coming tonight. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.
I
Good
want to
night.
thank everybody real quick as well. And I did notice that, okay, somebody just responded. Do you have a service request number? How do we get the city chain link fence repaired? If y'all can plug in your email or you can email my office at jaime.resendez@dallas.gov and we can look into all that. But thank y'all so much for being involved. Community members, I see all the questions. Please feel free to reach out to my office with any further feedback and follow up and all that. And we'll maintain the conversation going.
Thank you so much, Mayor Pro Tem Resendez. We really appreciate you being here the entire night, listening to everything. Also, Councilmember Basil Dua, you guys are the backbone of the community, and we appreciate all your hard work. Thanks, everyone.